Gabriel went from selling sneakers at the age of 12 to feeling completely miserable at the age of 19. He experienced what it really felt like to be truly alone, to now being able to travel and work remotely over all of the world as a trader with an 80% win rate. That's insane. So if you want to learn from his story and see what's really possible to change your own life as well, I would say stick around, because there's a lot of value in this man's head you don't even know.
Just the beginning.
Just the beginning. That's what they always say.
Truly, truly. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thank you for inviting me on the amazing podcast.
This
is just the beginning, I'm certain of it, for sure.
I told you as well, I just like doing it, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, I see you're very passionate about this, so looking forward.
Now we're diving into your story, because selling sneakers at the age of 12, how did that start? What happened?
What happened? Well, I always knew that I wanted to do something with business, and I also really wanted a car. And my parents made it pretty clear that you weren't going to get a car unless you bought it. And I never wanted a job. I really just didn't want a regular job. I ended up actually working at an ice cream place for a few months, but I knew I just had this motivation. I really wanted to be able to buy myself a car. And my grandma gave me a little investment. I had some money saved up from birthdays, Christmas, whatever it is, and bought my first pair of sneakers. I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos at the time, and people were talking about reselling sneakers, and I loved shoes. I was super interested and passionate about that. And I got my first pair of Jordan 1s. I believe that was the first kind of hype shoe that I got. And after I made that first flip, I was like, okay, I see the vision now. There's a path. And I just started every day, started doing research. I was young, I was 12, so obviously I had school, I was playing soccer, whatever I was doing when I was 12. Could barely remember. Yeah. But I knew that I wanted to do something business oriented, and that's where it started.
Because you did not grow up in a really rich family, you did not grow up in a really poor family, just middle class, normal.
Very blessed. I have amazing parents. They got divorced when I was about 14, but overall had a great childhood. Super love my family so much.
Yeah.
But I also grew up with super bad dyslexia and ADHD. So school was not my strong suit. I was probably one of the worst students at school. I had no focus. I was not good at reading until I was probably way older than most people. So I always knew that I needed to do something of my own. And also I'd say probably my superpower, if you want to call it that, is being able to, when I put my mind to something that I'm passionate about, I can really just lock in on it. Opposed to, if I'm not passionate about it or I don't care about it, I have zero focus on it. So that's pretty much.
Yeah, because you grew up in America, right? Which part?
Grew up in upstate New York, tiny town called Woodstock. There was a big festival there back in the day.
You ever went?
No.
Because it's one of the first biggest festivals ever created. Was Woodstock, which sponsored by Coca-Cola and shit. It's
one of the biggest. It's a big thing in the town, but it's a tiny town, maybe 3,000 people in total. So grew up in a really just kind of countryside town, and yeah, my grandma lives in the city, so we'd go visit her once in a while. But pretty small town upbringing for sure.
And then from that small town, you started reselling sneakers, shipping or what? How do you do it?
My parents would help me with shipping, but I had an eBay account that I kind of took over from my dad. He had a couple hundred reviews on there, so I borrowed that account, so I had some credibility. And Instagram wasn't that big with sneakers at that point when I started, or at least I just wasn't really in part of the social media world. So I was mainly using eBay, and then at some point StockX when that came out. And I was pretty successful in that. I wouldn't say I was the top sneaker seller in the game, but I was able to actually achieve that goal of getting myself a car.
Which car did you bought?
I got a Honda Civic.
Honda Civic.
So yeah, Honda Civic. And that was pretty much my beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, which has come a long way from when I stopped when I was about 16 doing that.
Yeah, but where did it came from? Like, I don't want to have a job. I just want to do something for myself because it's not
Normal, I guess.
normal. I guess. Yeah, most people don't think of that when they're 12. Do you have any idea where that came from?
It was just always, I knew that I wanted to be free. Like, I knew that I wanted to just do what I love. Because like I said earlier, when I'm not focused on something, when I don't have passion for it, I have zero attention span to do it. So I knew that I needed to do something. I obviously didn't know where it would develop to, but I knew that I needed to do something not traditional. I wouldn't say I'm a traditional kind of person. So
And do you think that also developed because you did not fit into the school system in the right way, or?
probably, yeah. You know,
'Cause-
everyone had that. You know, there's those like job career tests they make you do, and even just standardized testing, that normal kind of corporate life. I was just always awful at that kind of stuff, and I knew that that just wasn't what I wanted to do from a very young age. Somehow, I felt it inside. I don't know exactly how it came from, but I just felt it.
And probably like being dyslexic as hell does not help. Like
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic as hell as well,
Yeah,
you know. So
yeah. Doesn't help.
it doesn't help. Started read. I
Yeah.
couldn't read properly until like when everyone already could read
Yep.
for like 2 years, 3 years straight. Like
same for me. So
A B C ape, you know, like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of crap.
awful.
Awful at reading. But at some point you
Yeah.
managed. You learned.
I learned, and they put me on some awful medication, like ADHD stuff, and you know, I don't know, that kind of numbs you. I don't know if you went on, like, it was called Ritalin, I think.
Yeah,
And
I know.
I just have years that I genuinely don't remember, like it just being numb, like from probably like 4th or 5th grade till maybe like 8th grade was pretty just like blank, just very numb. Definitely does a lot to your mental health for sure.
That's
So,
crazy that people do that to a child.
Yeah,
Just
right?
because it does not fit into a system.
Yeah, crazy.
And then
So-
you started sneaker selling. You did
Yep.
it until like 17, 16?
16, 17, that was when I was at my peak of it, and then it kind of fell off for me, for sure.
Why?
Just honestly, me just being lazy, I'd say. Yeah, I was distracted. You know, I had new friends. I was doing different things. I was in high school, and I guess I just kind of lost the motivation, which is something that I learned more recently, which we'll talk about later, is just about screwing motivation. It's all about discipline. You know, it's not about, I don't care if I feel good that day or that week or that month. Like, I have a job and I need to do that. And I guess I was immature to the point where it started working less. I was making less money, and I got into different things.
Yeah,
So-
because then from 19 till 21, you started like more in high
Yeah,
school.
yeah, exactly.
Started college, right?
College, exactly. Started college when I was 18, and you know, doing the normal college kind of thing in America, at least. I'm not sure how it is in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
but
just drinking, smoking weed, that kind
Exactly.
of doing
whatever.
the
nothing good.
edibles. Let's say it like that.
Yeah.
You know that.
Exactly. So just, and then obviously there, I was not focused on trading. I was not focused on selling sneakers. I still actually had some back at home that I ended up selling later, just kind of part of my collection. But yeah, just went off the wrong track. Started hanging out with, I wouldn't say the wrong people, but definitely people who weren't doing good with their lives. Like, weren't working on self-improvement, building businesses, just overall improving themselves mentally, spiritually, physically. And obviously, you're the sum of the people who you're around. So if you hang out with 10 drug dealers, you're going to be the 11th. If you hang out with 10 billionaires, you're going to be the 11th. So it's kind of like I was just with the people who were doing the fun stuff, but not the right stuff. And that was kind of my college, like, just miserable period where I wasn't mentally happy. I wasn't doing good stuff to my body for myself. And at some point, I needed to change. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But
Yeah, because what happened to you in that way? Like you told me that you did not eat healthy.
Oh,
you
for
were
sure.
you were
Yeah.
gaining like a
Yeah.
little weight.
Yeah.
You were becoming fat and shit.
Yeah, exactly.
And how did you feel? Like how did you walk around with yourself?
Not good. Like shit. But I was numbing it with going out and partying and drinking and hanging out with some people. And, I wouldn't say I got like fat, but definitely just put on some pounds, wasn't feeling good, wasn't taking good care of myself, going out late, waking up, throwing up, going to class like half asleep, doing it again. So just nothing good.
Just the
And
party period.
Just the party period. I think a lot of people go through that period. And I wouldn't take that back for anything. Because I think a lot of people, at least, especially here, we're in Bali. I know it's a pretty big party scene in Canggu. And I think from 18 to about 20, I got that out of my system. And I'm happy that I got that out of my system. And I realized how unhappy that makes me. So if I didn't do that then, I could still be doing that kind of stuff or worse right now. So as we kind of talked about earlier, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. And I'm super grateful for all those experiences that brought me to where I am in beautiful Bali today. So,
yeah, and just to look back at that, like if you're partying a lot, if you're doing all the part, if you're in the party space of your life,
yeah,
it does not mean you're a bad person.
no, absolutely not.
It just means that your actions have a certain outcome. And the actions you're doing create that certain outcome. And a certain outcome for you in that party period of your life was you're not feeling mentally well, you're not healthy, you're not like... But that totally makes sense, bounded to the behavior that you had at that certain point.
Exactly.
So,
and it's a cycle, It doesn't, it's not like it happens once, but it's kind of just that shit cycle where you go out and then obviously you're out, so you're eating cheap, unhealthy, low quality food, and then you're not sleeping as well. And if you're not sleeping as well, you're eating unhealthy food, you're staying up late, and then that kind of carries over to all things. So it's kind of just this shit cycle, opposed to kind of what I'm doing now. Wake up, do some meditation, do some breath work, go to the gym, have a nice coffee, do some sauna, ice bath, do some good work, get good sleep. That puts you on this good trajectory. So it's really important just how you kind of start your day and how you kind of just... The small things you do have a huge effect. That's truly what I've noticed.
what flipped the switch for you after that period or within that period?
It was a buildup, so it's hard to go back to exactly. It was kind of a lot of things piling up. But I just remember having a night out. I was drunk, I was whatever, and I was just looking at myself. And I don't think I was looking horrible, because I was already trying to be a bit better. But I was like, I made a promise to myself. I was like, this is the worst I'm gonna look like or feel. I was just looking in the mirror and I was like, I need a change. Like if I keep doing this, I'm gonna keep getting shit. Like I knew that I wanted to help my family. I wanted to be able to support myself. I had a big focus. I was really too focused on nice things. I wanted a nice car, I wanted nice watches, nice clothes, whatever. Which I've changed kind of on this trip, like we'll talk about later. But I'd say just I got to a point where I knew if I continued this, it wasn't looking good. And I needed to stop immediately. So after that, completely stopped drinking, and that definitely changed my life for sure.
Yeah, because you've been sober since 2022.
I've been sober from alcohol. I wouldn't say sober, like I've had a drink or two at like with my friends, a beer or two, but I have not been drunk, like gone out to the bar, taken shots, whatever, since 2022. Yes. And I don't drink anymore. Like it doesn't feel good. Hurts your sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things for your body, for your mental clarity. It's unhealthy for you. If you eat a lot of food, it's going to clog you up, and your body wants to burn those calories first. So it's like poison. So instead of digesting the food, then you're trying to digest this alcohol. So it's just not good for your body. It's not good for your mind, and I don't feel a need for it. I'm way happier without it. Yeah.
Cool. And then, okay, so you made a decision, okay, I stopped drinking
Yep.
like this. And then what else? You said, what's the build-up?
From that, what do you mean?
You said it was a build-up, so you had that one moment that you looked
Yeah.
yourself into the mirror like, okay, fuck, this
Yeah.
is the worst I'm gonna feel, the worst I'm gonna look like.
But you're saying the build-up before that.
The build-up before that, and what happened after that moment?
So the build-up before that was just kind of when I was at my worst. You know, I was going out every night. I was hanging out with the people who wanted to go out every night. So, like I was saying earlier, like if you hang out with these kind of people, which I'm not saying they're bad, they're still perfectly normal people, you know? It's just everyone does different things with their life. And I have no judgment, only respect, but you know, it was just that build-up of consistently doing those shit things until one point I just was like, I'm done. Like,
what happened after that moment?
after that moment, it was hard, you know, because I was still hanging out with those people, and I was just kind of in this lonely chapter, like we talked about earlier, where I outgrew these friends, and I didn't want to be spending all my time with these people, because it's hard when you're the only sober guy at the party, or the only sober guy at the hangout, and everyone's like, oh, come on, drink, whatever. And then I kind of outgrew that. I wanted to just focus on going to the gym, working on just building a business, building something. And I wasn't at the point where I was kind of on the trajectory. I didn't meet those new friends who were doing that yet. But so I was kind of in this weird limbo period of life where I was doing different stuff than my original friends, but I wasn't doing enough to be making the new friends who were doing that, if that makes sense. So
Yeah, it does actually,
Yeah.
because I've been through the same, so I know exactly what you mean
Yeah.
with that. It's just you're working your ass off, and you know that the people you hang around with are not the people you're gonna stick with.
exactly.
But you did not find the right people yet
Exactly.
to hang around with and do the right things with.
Exactly. So that for me was kind of like a hard period, because obviously when you are one of the people who goes out and you're kind of known, I wouldn't say like known, but like all your friends are like, oh, why aren't you coming out with us? Why are you just locked up in your room working or going to the gym? Like, why aren't you coming out, doing this, that? And obviously you lose a lot of friends in that process. I'd say I lost most of those friends. But
What impact did that have on you?
it had a good impact on me, because obviously it was hard, but I realized if you don't want to be my friend and you don't like me for me, then you were never my friend in the first place. Obviously it's like, damn, but if the only reason you want to hang out with me is because we're getting drunk together, then that's really not my friend. Like, my friend is someone who would do that with me, but also completely want me to do better. Realize that that wasn't making me happy, and that wasn't serving me, and would want to push me and be like, dude, why are you coming out with us? Like, get your ass in the gym today. You know, I want someone who would push me to do that, opposed to someone who's kind of doesn't want to see me win. I don't consider that my friend. So.
And then what inspired you to do that? Because at some point you flipped the switch
Yeah.
when you looked yourself into
Yep.
the mirror,
Mhm.
and then you say, okay, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yep.
You started working, but how did you know what to work on? How did you?
So I was lost. I was completely lost. I went to school at first for computer science. I was doing some coding when I was a bit younger, but I wasn't doing good. Like, it wasn't for me. I realized that this is not what I wanted to do. I realized what it would bring me. It would bring me an office job, sitting on a computer, doing that, and I just wasn't focused on it. So I declared my major undecided, and that was probably the most lost I've ever felt. I had no idea what I wanted to do. Literally, I was so lost to a point where I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll drop out. Like, I just have no idea what I want to do with my life. And I was kind of drifting. Like, great book, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Don't know if you've read it, but
I did not read it, but I've heard a lot about it.
yeah, it talks about you being a drifter. Like, there's people who have a defined purpose, and those are the people who actually make it in life. And then there's people who kind of just drift through life. And I felt like I was in that drifter period. And at that point, I just stopped drinking. I started going to the gym. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life from like a business, financial perspective. But I knew that I needed to get better, like physically. And once I started doing that, kind of just things moved on. I was getting better, started eating clean, tracking my calories, going to the gym, got a really good training program, started just doing good for myself. And I realized that I wanted to do some stuff with real estate. That was my first kind of idea because my mom does real estate stuff. She's also a yoga teacher, but she always did stuff with real estate. So that was something I was interested in, and which led me to kind of my first job out of college, which was not really a job, but an internship, working with a multifamily real estate company. And I was doing a lot of cold calls. So I was raising capital for them. It was kind of a private equity firm where we'd raise capital for syndications. So we had a different raise. It was like a couple 100-unit apartment complex, and we'd have private accredited investors. And my job was pretty much to call these guys. We had a list of like medium to hot leads and get them to invest in the projects. So I did that for about 6 months.
What did you learn from that?
I learned that I do not love that kind of work. That just calling and spreadsheets and underwriting stuff. I learned that that is just not my favorite. And that led me to trying other things.
And what did you learn from the work itself?
The work itself?
Because like I did it as well. Like my main income is sales right now.
Yeah. So from cold calling, I learned how to get rejected really well. I learned how to be more confident in myself, just being able to approach people. Because if I think to myself, if I can call some random millionaire and convince him to put in $200K in a real estate investment when he's potentially heard of the company or never heard of the company, then I could talk to anyone. I could meet someone at the gym. I could go up to a girl. I could do whatever I want. So that was definitely very helpful, built my confidence up. And another thing I learned, definitely a lot about real estate, just how to identify a project, how to walk a deal, how to underwrite a project and see if it works. Because something I am still definitely passionate about is doing real estate. But for now, my main source of income, which we'll talk about in a bit, is trading, which is something I've absolutely fell in love with and makes me so happy. So that's probably one of the things I learned is what I don't like. And also I gained a lot of confidence doing that. Yeah.
And I think it's also really important to do stuff that you don't like so you can find out what you do like. Mm-hmm. But then the first step is doing stuff. And that's where most people get stuck. Like they consume instead of create.
Consume instead of create, exactly. And motivation and discipline, like during 2023, I really got super duper disciplined. So I started waking up at 5 a.m. every single morning. Obviously, this was U.S. time. So I was living in Florida, St. Augustine, if you guys know it. But I was waking up at 5 a.m. every morning and running. So every morning I'd wake up, I'd do my meditation, just do some breath work, and then I would go on I'd do a lap around, it was called Magnolia Dunes. So it was probably about a little bit under a mile, but still, 5 a.m. And my least favorite thing is running. Like I do not like to run. So it was purely just two things I don't like. I don't like the cold, and I don't like to run.
That's funny because we met on a run club.
Exactly. So I was like, I'm just gonna do shit that I don't like to kind of build that muscle, mentally build calluses on my mind. So I'd run every morning, and then I'd take a cold shower right after that. And I was like, if I can do two things that I dislike in the morning, the hardest part of my day is already over. So any other bullshit that I have to deal with pales in comparison to the two things that I really don't like to do. So that really got me a lot more disciplined. And at that point, I was just doing too much, right? Every day I was going to the gym, 7 days a week. Don't recommend that because I was just sore all the time. And you honestly don't get the best gains even doing that. You need rest. It's super important. But I was going to the gym 7 days a week. I started doing e-com, and I was creating an agency. So I had this kind of agency going.
First you started the CRM agency, right?
Yeah, first was the agency.
Because you did CRM management for the company that you worked for.
Exactly.
And then just to dive back before we go all
Yeah.
the way up. Then you did CRM management based on the cold calling, and you managed
Exactly.
CRMs there. Then you thought, wait, I can do an agency for this, because you told me like the Imangachi,
I'll go into
Starter
that.
Agency,
Yeah.
SMMA, that kind of things was really booming back then. I think that's 2020, 22, 23?
Yeah, 2022, 23, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically how it started was, for my work, I was doing cold calls for this company, Discover Multifamily it was called, and I was also managing their CRM. So I was inputting data for them, adding stuff to their clients, managing their funnels, helping them build like workflows and send out their email campaigns. And so I was pretty good at it. I actually was working on it a lot, and I thought, I was watching YouTube and I saw Iman Gadzi talking about build a social media management agency. You know, you can do this, you can build all of this, sign a client, get them on retainer, you're making 10K a month. Obviously, this sounds super easy until you realize it's actually not that easy. And so my goal was to start off, get a few clients, manage their social or their CRM software, and eventually go on like Fiverr or whatever, find a person who I could hire, outsource the work, and keep clients on retainer. And that was the goal. And I was doing that while I was also trying to go to the gym, while I was also working for this internship, managing their CRM and doing cold calls, plus going to college. So I was doing like way too much, and I was getting not anywhere in any of it.
And then you thought, let's start ecom.
Yeah. So actually, I stopped doing the CRM. I just cut that out, like the CRM agency. I moved on. I was like, I'm going to try ecom now, while still doing all the other things. Because I had that shiny object syndrome, where you try something, you think it's going to be easy. You know, if you've seen that curve, it's a very famous, I think the Dunning-Kruger effect, I think it's called. Excuse me. But you start this new thing, you think it's going to be easy, until you realize, oh wait, it's super hard, super duper hard, unreal, it's impossible, and then you get to that point where you're up on the curve and you've kind of just mastered it. But I was always just getting to that peak of the curve, to the hard part, and changing it up. So that was really hard, because I wasn't committed. I wasn't committing to anything. I was doing too much. I was becoming a jack of all trades and a master of none. And at one point, once I graduated college, I was like, I can't do this, because if I continue doing this, I'm going to get good at a million things, yet not great at anything. And that's when I truly just started trading and mastering that.
And what I've also learned from someone who was on the podcast here as well is that being a jack of all trades for a period, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about that
For
a bit
sure,
earlier as
for
well.
sure.
You'll learn a lot of meta skills that can become in handy later in your journey. But you just, like, you can only connect the dots afterward, of course.
Exactly.
But so it's not wrong to be a jack of all trades. I think you've been through that period.
Yep.
Another guy I had on the podcast been through that period as well. He said it as well, that's a phase you also go through with entrepreneurship. I also went through that phase.
Yeah.
When I was trying YouTube automation, when I was trying like sales, when I was trying the marketing. At some point I had the idea of starting an agency.
Exactly. It's hard because you see something, you're doing it, you see another person doing so well at this thing, making money that seems like a money printer, and then your attention gets drawn. So the biggest lesson I've learned is that just stick to one thing. It's truly all you need to do. Obviously, you can have side things, like for example, you're doing the podcast, but if you really want to make it at something, just for someone starting, someone not really where we are right now, just pick one thing and put all your focus on that before you start to branch out. And there's going to be a point where a new opportunity, it's almost like the universe testing you. That's what I've noticed. Like, you're going to get to a certain point and there's going to be something else, a new opportunity that's going to come in. You're going to get a call, something is going to happen. And you got to make that choice right then and there. Are you going to do that and branch off and start something completely new and go through that whole shiny object syndrome cycle again? Or are you just going to bunker down, pass the test, and just work on that one thing? And it took me a very long time to get to that point and that realization. And I'm so happy. but I wish I could have done it sooner. Sure.
There's one thing I want to address to that. Because like I've been in sales for the past 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And of course you have the shiny object syndrome. I had it as well.
Of course.
But right now opportunities come my way that are additional to my skill set.
Exactly.
And I think then it's something else, because then you start your skill sets. Then you have like one building block that you
For sure.
had. Like for me, that's sales.
Yep.
Then I build up to that selling marketing software. Now I'm sales and marketing consultant, so I know sales and marketing. And now
You're stacking
and now the
skills.
next step is building my company with the AI integration with my companion.
Yeah,
But I'm also
yeah.
working on a deal on the side with someone I met in Lisbon
sure.
and who is now also in Bali
Yeah.
to do the sales for his company, to ditch the other company that I'm working for, because it's like I'm gonna sell higher ticket there. It's less work with more commission. But then it's a new opportunity, but within the same field.
Exactly.
So
I think you should definitely say yes to opportunity. But I'm more referring to if you're doing an agency opposed to drop shipping. Like that's
like when it's too much,
too polarizing, too like opposite, then I think obviously like we were talking about the meta skills. Everything you do will help you at some point. You never know. Like I can think of many things, like doing yoga. Like it's something random. You would have never thought that I would meet some awesome people doing a yoga class and then make some connections. This happens here, you know, or doing a run club. Like I don't like to run. And
literally when we were running, we talked about, we hate this running club.
I don't like running. That's one thing I genuinely don't like to do, but I still do it just because it's good for you and I'm pushing myself. Because if you can do a lot of things that you don't like to do, then just think how amazing you'll be at the things you do like to do. So you never know what's going to happen. And if I didn't do all those runs and kind of condition myself, then I definitely would have got this invite to a run club and been like, nah, that I don't want to.
Not gonna do
I
that.
appreciate it. Or maybe I'll say, yeah, maybe I'll come. And then I would just wake up at, you know, it was pretty early. Like I normally wake up around 9:30, 10.
And now you need to wake up at 7.
Because my trading starts around 3 and I trade till about 11 or 12, sometimes 1, like the New York session. So I wake up later so I can get my 8 hours of sleep. Obviously, when I was in Europe, I would wake up at 5 a.m. because the European time zone's a bit different. But while I'm here in Asia, I wake up later, so I even have to wake up earlier, do this. So, and I would have never met you, and
We would have been sitting here.
we would not be sitting here. So just trust. But I do like what you're saying. That if you get an opportunity that's aligning with what you're building, then of course, keep going for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with what
Yeah,
you're saying
yeah.
as well. So I just want to address that small little sidestep there.
It's definitely, it's nuanced.
Because, it's nuanced, just like you said. But then at some point in 2022, you got fully sobered up, and in 2023, well, you've met a mentor.
Yeah.
And
that
you
was
were
the
almost
mentor.
done with college, right?
I was almost done with college. The mentor was with the real estate and the CRM. So that was kind of before. I met the mentor, and then I started working with him on the CRM, and then kind of you get to where we are now.
Yeah, because then at some point, it's I don't want to do e-com, because you were losing money on that.
Yep. Running ads and selling shitty products.
No
was not-
conversion.
Exactly.
So you were losing money on the e-com, the CRM company was not working, and
Exactly.
you did not feel fulfilled with the whole concept of that.
Yep.
Learned a shit ton, of course.
And the biggest thing is, with that job that I was talking about, I would have had to stay in my hometown. So that for me felt like just regressing. Because this mentor I met was actually grew up in the same hometown as me. So that's how we connected. And he wanted to do a lot of work in that town. So buy some real estate projects, do that. And he wanted me to work kind of doing the same cold calls, obviously that stuff. But that just felt for me like I was regressing. I was going backwards. I felt like at that kind of point, after getting through being in this lonely chapter, working on myself, going so far, doing so many good things, that moving back home kind of just was taking a step backwards, and it wasn't going to serve me, and that I could see myself going to old habits, hanging out with old high school friends, and just at that point I knew I needed to change, and that's how I ended up starting to travel. So
Yeah, and also because near the end of college you started to dive into trading, right?
yes.
So
Exactly.
one of the jack of all trades things
Exactly.
was trading.
Another shiny object syndrome. Again, exactly. But I fell in love with it. And at that point, I read one of my goals last year was read a book every week. So I did that. I completed that. And I read a lot and I learned about this kind of shiny object syndrome. I didn't come up with this concept, but I learned about how this will happen. And I made the connection and I was like, I love doing this. I'm actually good at it. It's something I'm passionate about. And I don't care how long it takes. I know there's going to be shiny objects. And there were. But I stuck with it and not going anywhere. So
Yeah, because there you made one radical decision. That's like,
Yeah.
okay, fuck, I'm just going away.
I'm going away and I'm focusing on one thing.
Yeah.
That was the biggest
So you-
change I made, and that changed my life.
You
Absolutely.
you cut off the ties. You stopped
Yes.
e-com. You
Yep.
stopped the CRM company.
Stopped
You
everything.
had some savings build up.
Yep.
So you had
Yep.
like some clarity of mind.
Exactly.
That's what I would recommend everyone because I do not have that, and sometimes it brings a lot of stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you like stress, just go.
Yeah. Yeah.
It works as well. I'm here.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
But and then you moved to Portugal for 2 months.
Yeah, so I'm very blessed. I have a really good family friend, or pretty much family, who owns an apartment in Portugal. So I was able to get that for a very, very affordable price and stay for a few months. And then also in Italy, where I went next, another very affordable price for a place. So I had about 4 months where I could really just focus, lock in on my trading. And that was so helpful. Also, my parents, very helpful. And I just can't wait to be able to give back more to them. And I'm still at the beginning of my trading journey, truly. Like, I've made good money and I would consider myself profitable, but there's so much more to learn. And I know I want to do this for the rest of my life. I'm so passionate about it. So
That's really cool. It's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
you see when you speak about it. That's
yeah, it's
But that started when you really locked in because you
Yes.
forced yourself, and that's what I told you as well. You were lonely when you were with people.
Mhm.
That's where your real lonely chapter
when I
was.
was loneliest.
But when you was literally alone for 4
Yeah.
months, 2 months in Portugal, 2 months in Italy,
yeah,
you did not feel alone because
No.
you knew what to do. You were
Exactly,
locked in. You were
exactly.
focused,
Mhm.
and you could do it all by yourself. And I think
I was the loneliest, genuinely, like, not loneliness, like, inside, but the most isolated I've ever been in my entire life in Italy. I was in a tiny little house in a tiny little town, Montecchio. I don't even know. 1,000 people maybe live there. In the countryside of Italy for 2 months. I had a stick shift car that my family friend let me borrow from him. I had never driven stick shift. The closest store was probably 25 minutes away, and there wasn't a person probably a mile on each side of me. So I was just alone. You know, if I actually got a horrible cut on my finger, and that was like the most, I was like, I literally can't go to the hospital right now. I couldn't drive. I had to walk to the house and get this lady to bandage me up. But that was the most isolated I've ever been, truly. And I didn't feel lonely because I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I was just, every day I'd wake up, I'd trade, I'd do my outdoor workout, and that was it. Go to bed. Like, I didn't, and cook. But besides that, there was literally nothing I was doing. Not one moment where I was just chilling, watching a TV show or anything like that. Just pure locked in, which is probably the most focused I've been. Yeah.
and there you had like the 4 months to become profitable.
The 4 months to learn the TA. Yeah.
TA?
Technical analysis. So I'd say in that period, that's when I learned truly how to make money from trading, how to identify the markets, how to identify my schematic, how to focus on my one setup. And the rest of the time was me making enough money for now. Obviously, we'll talk about this in a bit, but this is the beginning of my journey. I've only been trading for about a year, a little bit over, I'd say, like with crypto and finance, like the markets.
The Forex trading?
But Forex trading, exactly. But I still have a long way to go, for sure. But in that period, I truly learned how to trade. And all the way after that was just refining, getting better at executing, getting more profitable, and working on my psychology. So, and I'm still doing that every single day.
How do you do that? How do you work on your psychology, refining your strategies? How do you do that?
So, reading books. A great book, Trading in the Zone, Mark Douglas. Best Loser Wins. It's probably the best 2 trading books out there, in my opinion. And just back testing. So going on the charts, you have no capital, you're trading zero money, and you go back, I don't know, 2-3 years in time, and there's like a replay function. So you can go forward in time and basically just building conviction in my setup, right? Going back, finding my setup, trading it in a fake demo trading environment, seeing it work, and doing that over 100 or 200 times, and building so much confidence to know that if I can just stick to my plan, have a clear stop loss, basically where price, if it touches that level, I lose the money instantly. And a lot of people trade without a stop loss. No one profitable does, but most retail people who don't really know too much about it, they have their position, they don't set a stop. And it's like playing a game of poker, right? When you're playing a game of poker, you've got so many chips. And once you're out of chips, you're done. But when it comes to trading, if you don't have a stop loss, you never lose. Until obviously you get completely liquidated, which means your account balance is drained. But you only realize the loss once you've closed the position. So people get into the trap where they open their position, it goes against them, they don't have a clear invalidation, and they just keep losing. And there's no one you're not gonna run out of chips. So you're just gonna keep going up and losing more money. So just focusing on sticking to my plan, going over my checklist, and executing on my setup. And the most important thing is like deleting the idea of making money out of your mind. Like a basketball player plays basketball because he loves the game, not because he wants to make money. You gotta love trading and not focus on how much money you're gonna make on that trade, and truly just fall in love with the actual sport of it. And that's how you can truly work on that psychology. So.
And there was one major tip that you can give people who are just starting.
Major tip, find one strategy you like and only focus on that. It's just like the shiny object syndrome. There are so many strategies. You can use indicators, you can use market structure, you can use supply and demand, liquidity, you can use smart money concepts, you can use breakout patterns. There's a million things. But find one thing that works for you, build a strategy around it, make sure you can just stick with that, back test it, and don't look back. Don't look for new things.
And then there was one other thing,
Yeah.
and that's if you start,
Yeah.
don't start with your money. Start with a fake account.
For sure.
Because if you start with money, that's what you told me in the conversation we had before this. If you start with money, you are immediately
Focused.
emotionally bounded to the
Exactly.
outcome of your trades,
Exactly.
instead of you being open to learning the skill.
Yes. Losing a trade should not be looked at as a bad thing. As long as you stuck to your plan, you had a strategy in mind, and you didn't deviate from that plan. It's basically just the tuition of learning trading. You know, you go to college, you pay what? $20,000 a year, $50,000 a year for some, $100,000 a year for some colleges, like the top universities. This is just your trading tuition. If you take a loss, reflect, journal it, go over that setup, just think about what you did wrong, and you just paid your trading tuition. So losses are a good thing, and every single profitable trader takes losses. It's not, no one has a 100% win rate. So just got to be good at losing. That's probably the most important thing. And there is a caveat. You should start out with a demo account where you're not trading live capital, but it is completely different once you start putting up margin and your real money is on the line. It's super different. So I do recommend you trading with like a $5 risk to start off and working from there, because it's a completely different experience. Trading with zero capital to even a $5 risk, completely different, truly.
But then it's like still stick to your strategy,
Stick to your plan,
stick to your plan,
everything.
and manage the emotional side. And what I've also saw in your story to get to that 80% win rate, you've told me up front, when in doubt, zoom out.
Yeah, when in doubt, zoom out, for sure.
When in doubt, zoom out. Just wait, I made 4 losses in a row. That hits your psychology.
Yes.
That's like, it hurts because you see a 20,000 euro loss.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes.
I don't trade with that big of capital yet. I would love to very soon.
Or like
I
a 2,000 euro or 1,000 euro or
Exactly.
500 euro or dollar in your case maybe.
Yeah.
And it still hurts.
Yeah.
It still is shit.
Exactly.
Like you lose money, literally.
It sucks.
But if your overall win rate within the 100 trades is still at 80%,
Yep.
those 4 or 5 losses in a row does not matter. So just when in doubt, zoom out. What's your overall win rate?
Overall win rate and
Look at
over
your
a
stats.
sample size, right? If I take 3 trades, one's a loser, which means I'll lose 1% of my account balance. But I won't take a trade unless it's a 1 to 2, which means if I risk $1, I'll make $2. Risk $1,000, make $2,000, for example. So my minimum entry is a 2 risk to reward. So even if I lose 1% and I take 3 setups that week, I'll still make a good amount, you know, because sometimes my setups are 2 to 10 risk to reward. So you're risking $100, you're making 1,000. So as long as you keep your losers small and your winners even 1 to 2 is a perfect risk to reward, then you're profitable. So it's just about seeing, okay, I just took a loss, I just took a loss, I just took a loss, and knowing that statistically, because I've done 100 trades, I know that 80 of them are going to win. So if I just lost 10 times in a row, that just means I'm so much closer to all those winning trades. And obviously, if you stick to your plan, if you have that confidence in your setup, then it's completely different than if you just lost 5 times in a row and you don't know what you're doing. Like, that's a completely different story because you can lose 100 times in a row if you don't know, if you don't have a plan and a strategy. So, for sure.
But that's what you build up in those 4 months that you were away.
Exactly.
To become actually profitable. And good to know, it's like, you've said it, you were locked in. You were working like 12 hours a day, consistently on the charts.
Yes.
Really like locked in. So what you did in 4 months, that is possible, but then you need to have the headspace and the room and the time to do that.
You need the time.
To be completely locked in and learn the skill and to become profitable and build up from there.
Yes.
If not,
it can take years.
It can take years. It can
Multiple
take
years. It takes most people years, actually.
Yeah.
So the only way I was able to do it is because I graduated early. I took some time off. I had some savings and I just locked in. And if you were doing it and you're working on it a few hours every day, I cannot tell you it's going to take a short period. It's going to take you a very long time. And I can't even recommend, like now, for people to just do that because you get so absorbed. And if you're looking at it for too long, you start seeing things, your brain starts playing tricks on you. But I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't put that work in. Absolutely not.
Yeah, because after Italy, you never traveled back to America.
No, have not been back to America.
And that's since 2000?
24. I've only been traveling for a bit less than a year now.
And then you've traveled to Romania because that's where your dad comes from?
Dad's from Hungary.
Hungary?
So Budapest, then I was in Romania. Then after Romania, I went to Dubai for a week just because that was a place I always dreamed about going. And
what was it like?
Dubai is very different, right? It's probably the safest and the cleanest place I've ever been in my life. You go to the Dubai Mall, people have bags, Rolex, Gucci, Louis Vuitton bags, like shopping bags outside of the restaurant, lined up on the wall. Like, you don't see that anywhere else in the world. Like, that would get stolen. You do that in New York City, where I'm from, or upstate New York even, that's gone in 10 seconds, you know? Someone's gonna grab it. So it's such an interesting place, but it almost feels fake. Like, it's one of those places where I couldn't see myself living long term, but it's beautiful. Like, the streets, it's like walking around at 2 a.m. there, because I got a super late flight in, was like walking around, I don't know, anywhere at like 1 in the afternoon. It felt so safe. And really interesting culture, but very, very, what's the word for it? Like, everyone was trying to show off, it felt like. You know, flaunt their wealth, show that they have this, very materialistic. Instead of here, I feel like all the people I've met have been super down to earth, just focus on building a business, doing something for themselves, and not really judgy to the point where it's like, oh, you don't have the Rolex on, like you're not cool or whatever.
Bro, this is a Casio. Dude.
Yeah,
it's a real one, you know? It's at least $20. What the fuck?
So it's kind of like, it felt more judgy. like everyone would look at you, they'd look at your shoes before they look at your eyes, you know? So definitely something interesting I noticed, for sure.
And then that's what I've heard from someone else I had on the podcast as well,
Yeah.
who has been to Dubai, and he said like Bali,
It's different here.
it's the
different here.
same as Dubai within the people that you meet. You meet the same cool people, you meet the same high achievers,
Yeah.
you meet the same like network that you would have met in Dubai. Only here people are nicer
Yeah.
and they don't show off
Yep.
because they don't feel the need to.
For sure.
And even when I walk the streets, when I went to the beach in the morning to drink a coconut and just clear my mind, you know, that's how you do it here.
The best.
And then I walk back and then I overhear the conversation of two people who were going to surf, because that's also what you do here.
Of course.
And they said, yeah, I lived in Dubai for a while and everything. And I hear it's exactly the same, only people are more chill, not showing off, and you meet the same network.
Yeah.
You literally meet the same network, only people are nicer.
I met a few nice people in Dubai, but the nicest interactions I had there, I was only there for 6 days, so this is not a crazy sample size.
I've
but
never been there as well. I've just never been, I've just heard people.
The nicest, kindest people I've talked to there were the people working there, the locals. You know, the people who didn't have the Lamborghinis, the Bugattis, the crazy Richard Milles and Patek Philippe's, you know. They were just the people who were working there, the people who were making no money. The wealth divide there is unreal. There's like two sides of Dubai. It's like extreme poverty or extreme wealth. There's almost no in between. So almost even worse than here, actually. So.
And there's something that you've learned through those travels as well, because first your goal was to make a shit ton of money.
Exactly.
And now that you're here, you've said you've learned that recently.
Yeah, so originally, and I still have a similar goal, like to be able to fully retire my family. My grandma, my mom, my dad, and like all my close friends. Be able to just, if they need something, I can help them. I want to be able to give back to the people who have just been a big impact on my life. That's always been a major dream of mine. But I realized that getting the nice cars, the nice clothes, the nice whatever, it's not going to make me happy long term. Like maybe it'll make you happy for a week, but then you adjust to it. And it's just like, what's next? And I realized that's not what I wanted in my life, and that's not going to bring me happiness. And I just wanted freedom. I wanted the ability to say, I'm in Bali, and I love it here. I'm going to stay for another 6 months and have zero issue doing that. No requirements to go home. Obviously, I need to see my family. My grandma's almost 92, so I do need to see her. I'll probably go back at some point, probably just for a few weeks, and then maybe come back here or somewhere else in Asia. But I just want that freedom. And that's what I've truly learned on this trip, which has been a big shift, because for a while I just was like, I need to make a ton of money, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. So kind of having that balance of being able to be completely financially free, have nice things, help the people I love, but also not be a slave to some kind of corporate job that I need to go work long hours. Like I was looking to work in like private equity or venture capital or one of those like big firms, you know, where you get Goldman or BlackRock or something like that. And that's kind of what I was trying to do. That was the plan, you know, when I was doing this internship. I was either going to work for something in kind of multifamily real estate, which one of my goals is still to do real estate. After I save up a lot more capital for my trading, I definitely do want to do some real estate investing. And I've learned a lot about that, and I love it, but just I knew I needed freedom. And that's what I really, really learned on this trip. Yeah.
That's cool. And there are a couple of things that had a major impact on your journey as well. And one of them that we did not dive into yet, that goes all the way back to when you were in Italy and when you were in Porto,
Yeah.
in Portugal. And it was community, right?
Yeah. So I met a few people there, like just hanging out, but I really found a great community of people that I like to trade with. And so that's probably how...
Where did you find them?
Oh, on X, Twitter, actually. Just posting online. I'm not huge. I've only got like 1,200 followers, but I actually go live every day and live trade. So most people don't do that. You know, most people just post their trades, whatever. They post a crazy PNL shot, and there's no proof. But I actually live trade with my friend. He's actually from Amsterdam.
Really?
Yeah, my friend Tim. Maybe you connect with him. But yeah, we go live almost every single day and live trade, and we've given crazy setups out. So just putting that out there. But meeting that community of people who are trading the same strategy as me, which is called TCT. It's smart money concepts using Wyckoff, which is basically identifying the market makers. So the market makers are the big institutions, the exchanges who understand where all the liquidity lies, and the markets move from liquidity to liquidity, understanding that, identifying it, and trading accordingly. So meeting these people, having a good, strong community of people around me that I can trade with. They send me setups, I send them trades and stuff, and they're also grinding. They're working on becoming better traders, increasing their size, so risking more capital, becoming more profitable, working on their psychology. So meeting people like that truly was the end of my lonely chapter, where I had outgrown the old friends and have met people who were doing the same things as me. So that was kind of that transition out of there.
Warren Buffett, or at least it's like in the Intelligent Investor. I don't know if you read that book.
No, not yet.
There's a concept in that one, and that's called Mr. Market. And Warren Buffett talks about it a lot as well. You know Warren Buffett,
yeah,
of course.
Of course. One of the greatest.
Uncle Warren.
yeah.
And that's always when things go down, just don't listen to Mr. Market, because Mr. Market always helps it to go back up again. And when things go back up, don't listen to Mr. Market, because Mr. Market always helps it to go back down again as well.
Exactly. So it's kind of the same thing, but retail, like us, people who trade small amounts of capital relatively, have no effect on the market. Like we were talking about with the surfing analogy, we have zero effect on the market. You need billions and billions and billions of dollars to even move the market up a few dollars on something like Bitcoin, or a few $100s. Like we can't do this. So all we can do is react to what's coming at us. Kind of like surfing, where the waves will come at you and they'll try to knock you down, but you just got to get up. And that's probably the hardest part about trading, is taking a loss, taking another loss, and realizing that you have a plan, you have a strategy, it works, and that you need to just execute and do that. And over a long enough period, you are guaranteed to be profitable as long as you have a good strategy.
And to dive a bit deeper into the surfing analogy, in the talk we had before, he was telling me about how it works to ride markets and everything. And I started surfing here in Bali, so I just did it a couple of times. And when you surf, you're just a bitch of the ocean.
Exactly.
Like, you have no control of what happens with you inside of the ocean. You're just there on your little board trying to ride the waves. And you need to pick which wave you need to choose to ride on. And then you pedal on your board to ride that wave. And if the wave is not big enough, or you did not make enough movement on your board, you miss the wave. And that's the same with in trading.
Exactly.
You need to time the wave in a way that it fits the timing or the speed that you can anticipate on. And even if you ride the wave, that's with surfing as well, sometimes you fell off your board and then a big ass wave comes your way, and the only thing you need to do is roll over and get underwater, because if you don't do that, you get just smacked by the wave. And it can happen like 3 to 4 times in a row.
So many times in a row it can.
Yeah,
but knowing
with surfing, it's like always 2 to 3 times in a row. You have like 3-5 fucking big waves coming at you. You just double down, and then you go back to the shore around the waves to again wait for new waves to ride.
Exactly.
But you have no control over the ocean. You're the little bitch of the ocean. It's
the same. And
within
sometimes
trading.
The water is crazy choppy, crazy waves. Sometimes the water's super calm. And if you're always looking for a wave and you're so stuck on, I need to catch a wave today, what if it's a super calm day? Maybe you won't get a wave that day, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to just trust the process, build confidence in your strategy. And it's kind of even the same, right? Like, let's say you can't really get up on the board. You need to work on other things outside of trading, right? Maybe you need to work on your core strength. Maybe you need to work on your balance. So it's kind of the same with trading. If you're not seeing the results you want in the markets, you might need to work on some external things like your psychology, like focusing on not looking at the same thing because your mind tries to play tricks on you, right? Oftentimes what I notice is I have a very, very specific set of rules for my trading. It's like, it's written down, it's so unbelievably specific. And sometimes there's something so tiny and insignificant when I look back on it. Because it's super easy to look back on it in hindsight and be like, oh, of course, it's not a big deal. But sometimes you see it in the moment and it can seem like, oh, the setup's ruined. But just being able to have my list, check off all the boxes. Is it high probability? I won't say everything, obviously, but if I can check off every box, I just need to execute. And I know if I execute over that, since I've back tested it for so many times in that time in Italy, and just overall I back test all the time, that it works. And if you take a loss, it's completely fine. It's just the tuition of the game.
That's it. And then there's one last point I want to dive into before we end it, and that's you worked your ass off to get to this point.
Yep.
And right now you're working on a bit more balance, on a bit more rest, right?
Yeah, I would say I'm still working, obviously, probably 8 to 10 hour days in the charts most days, but realizing that if there's no setup, I have my alerts ready, I need to just do something else. Go to the gym, go to the beach, go on a run, do something else instead of just staring at the same charts when there's nothing there. I know there's nothing there, but just being too focused on it. But at the same time, being that focused and seeing so much price action and so much order flow and how the market moves allowed me to be where I am today. And I'm still growing. This is truly the beginning of my trading journey. I mean, I've only been trading for about a year, and I don't plan to go anywhere soon. So working on increasing my size is probably the most important thing, and just executing. So.
And that's what we also dived into in the talk we had before.
Yeah.
And it turns into phases.
Yes.
Right now you're in a phase where you can allow yourself to rest a bit more instead of having like the 20, 10, 12, 16-hour work days.
Yep.
Because you've already put in the reps.
For sure.
I'm still in the phase that I make like 12, 13-hour days because of the podcast, my work, the companies, new projects, everything.
Yeah.
So I'm not in that phase to rest yet.
But you will be. And there will be a point where I will be back in the trenches even more, grinding, working on building my community up, doing other things. I still try to record daily trading analysis, just going over all the charts. So there's still many things I'm working on. And I wouldn't say I'm not busy at all, but I'm trying to have a bit more balance and just realize if there's nothing there, there's nothing there. And I should just try to enjoy my time. I am in Bali. So.
And that's the point I wanted to make within that story of you. And that's, if you're not there yet, you need to put in the reps, you need to put in the hours to get there. And if you're there, it's okay to rest a bit more because it comes in seasons.
Yeah.
But even when it comes to the waves, even when it comes to trading, even when it comes to life, every season comes to an end. And then you go back into the trenches and work some more.
Exactly. Just the beginning. And to anyone looking to start trading, anyone can do it. It's a hard job, right? It's truly not for everyone. It's not like building a business. Because when you're building a business, it's really balls to the wall. It's like, it's brute forcing your way through it. It's long hours of work. It's grinding. It's making calls, doing meetings, making moves, just brute force work. But with trading, it's more about just striving, or it's about trading, striving for just arriving, right? The guy who sits on the charts all day for 5 hours or 10 hours takes 3 unnecessary setups because there's nothing there and loses $1,000, arguably did less work than the guy who did his technical analysis in the morning, set his alerts, knows nothing's there, went to the beach, took no unnecessary losses, and was actually trying to be off the charts because he knew that nothing was there and he needed to wait for more price action to develop before he'd get his trade. So it's like the only business or only skill like that you really just, it's different. You can't brute force your way through it. So starting off, anyone can trade. It's definitely going to be a long journey. Look into getting a funded account. Let's say you only have $100 to your name. You can get a $10,000 funded account on a prop firm like FTMO, Alpha Capital Group. There's many of them. And you can trade with $10,000 of capital opposed to your $100 of capital. And then if you're risking 1%, you can risk $100 on a trade. And then if you make, my average is about 5% a week, you can make $500 a week. Based on that 10K account, you can obviously get up to a 500K account And you can do the math on making 5% a week on a 500K account, which is what I'm working up to right now. But it's truly one of the most freeing jobs, in my opinion. And I definitely recommend it, but it's going to be a lot of work for sure.
And I think there's one small, tiny golden nugget
Yeah.
that you've, I think, unconsciously said through
Yeah,
what you just said. And that's, I am working my way up there right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things take time,
For sure.
right? Is there something you want to say as last thing to the people who made it through here with this podcast?
All of you guys are legends. This is going to be a huge podcast. I can tell. I'm going to check back on this in a couple of months, and I'm going to see some amazing new guests. And just truly never give up on yourself. You will make it. I'm certain of it. But don't be afraid to put the work in. Don't be afraid to take risks. I didn't get here by just doing normal things, sitting in my room watching Netflix. You know, that's not how you get to a place you want to be. And never get too comfortable, you know. I'm a good trader, but I'm always getting better. I'm going live every day on X, trying to improve my skills, become more profitable, get better at my strategy, increase my capital. So never get too satisfied and comfortable. There's always more, and this is just the beginning of my journey. And thank you so much for having me.
Of course, I will put all your links down in the description
Appreciate
as well.
it. Yes.
If people want to follow up with you, want to see all your live tradings and everything, you can
I'll definitely repost this as well on my accounts to hopefully get you some new guests and help it grow as much as I can.
Of course. And then I want to thank you for being here as well.
Thank you.
And I would say visionaries, like, subscribe, all that crap, and see you later.
See you later.
Ciao.
Peace out.